Greg's gonna be there. All right. I know what you look like, Greg, so that's great. Yeah, go ahead and keep letting us know. I bet you we might be a little bit light on our attendance rate today just because of that. Sorry about the timing. Anyway, let me go ahead and get right to it. It is Friday, and I don't know about y'all, but I'm feeling joy in the air. I hear this rumbling of like fear and hatred and something about like child as cat ladies, but really, I feel like joy is kind of overpowering the vibe this week. So let's just keep that going. So hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us and keeping the joy alive at Secular AZ. Again, if you are joining us, feel free to put your name in the chat. White Christian nationalism is the greatest threat to our democracy, and Secular AZ is your voice for the separation of religion and government. We're a nonprofit organization, and we act as your voice to elected officials all across the state and at every level. So be sure to check out all of our social media channels and do me a favor, like, subscribe, share it with your networks. Next week, we're going to be speaking with Kay Klinkenborg as she conducts a Project 2025 101 class. So you definitely don't want to miss that. There's all kinds of crazy hidden, I wouldn't call them gems, but maybe turds in there. So I can't wait to learn more about that, even though I don't usually like finding turds. But today we will be focusing on the county assessor race. We did invite the current Republican county assessor, Eddie Cook, to join us today, but he did not respond to our invitation. So today we'll be hearing from the Democratic candidate, Greg Freeman. If you want to ask Mr. Freeman a question, please put it in the chat. Greg grew up in Northwest Phoenix and I can do this, and attended public grade school and high school in the Peoria School District. Ooh, Peoria, I can't quit you. After getting his bachelor's in math and computer science at the Colorado School of Mines, he returned to Phoenix and has lived here ever since. Greg has worked in the real estate industry for more than a decade. He serves on the North Mountain and Deer Valley zoning commissions in Phoenix and is on the board of the Bell Road Business Alliance, Black Mountain Community Alliance, and Kids Chiro Foundation. He's also a member of the Bell Road Community Safety Plan and the Phoenix Police Department Business Initiative. Okay, that's a pretty extensive resume. Is there anything that I missed in there, Greg?
Just that when I attended the Peoria Unified Schools 20 years ago, the board was nothing like what it is now. And it was actually a wonderful, like top of the line public school that provided a great education that set me up. So, but no, you hit the highlights very well.
All right. Yeah. I feel like that there's some really great people in Peoria who are preserving the joy, and then you have all these outside influences who are trying to insert the hate. So I feel like this is just a flash in the pan, and as long as we keep up all of the hard work and support for those folks, we'll get through this. But anyway, Greg, it was supposed to be a forum. So unfortunately, it's not, but that means that you just get to tell us a little bit about this. So can you tell the folks, what does the county assessor do?
So the actual role of the county assessor has to do with the valuation of property, buildings and such, also agricultural goods, business products, literally assessing a value for purposes of taxation. The rules that control the county assessors in all the counties in Arizona are set by the state legislature. The actual tax rates are set by local school districts and the board of supervisors. So the county assessor kind of receives the gestalt of the instructions from all those entities, and every year goes out or remotely checks on 1.8 million pieces of property to then assess values of it for purposes of taxation. The property taxes in Maricopa County were over $5.5 billion last year. 57% of that money is immediately directed to local schools inside of Maricopa County. It's really the backbone of the budget for public education, as well as going into cities, fire departments in rural areas, improvement districts. Kind of every property taxes are a unique tax in that the money is allocated ahead of time. You know exactly where it's going to and what it's being used for.
Okay, so you mentioned how I think you said 50% of this $5.5 billion goes to schools.
57%, but yes.
57%. Okay.
Correct.
So then let's talk about this. I always call it quagmire, but I know that that's not right. Can you talk about the lawsuit that came about and how that came about and how it's affected the bottom line of schools? I know that's a lot of questions.
That's a lot of things, and there's a little bit of background. Again, the entire challenge of running for the county assessor is to take very technical things and try and slice them up in a way that they will be able to be easy to present and digest for average people. So this actually starts with decisions made in the assessor's office about 10 years ago, where they started seeing the rise of short-term rental properties in the Phoenix metro area. So one of the things that the assessor's office does is taxes things differently based on what type of property it is. If you are an individual owner of your home and you live there, that's a different tax rate than a rental property or business property or a government building or what have you. So the assessor's office, in what looked to me to be a very forward-looking way, saw the rise in these businesses and said, wait, 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 these are no longer an owner-occupied rental property. We should tax them like a business because a rental property is a business that's in the middle of your neighborhood. It just happens to be a business renting something to people that live there. So they looked at that and said, well, this is a change of use of that. So protections to limit the taxes for individual owners, we're going to get rid of those protections and charge them a higher tax bill. So they did that because it was reflecting a change in the use. The people that had that happen to them, they didn't like it. So they sued. The county assessor won in court. The people then appealed up to the Court of Appeals. And around this time, the current assessor took office after a scandal in the previous office. There was a change in the legal strategy, and suddenly the assessor's office that has the discretion to make these decisions is losing a court case. And the court says, no, 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 you guys went too far. The current assessor chose not to appeal any further. So they had assessed these taxes for a period of time, and then the court says, no, no, don't do that. It then took, between the assessor's office and the treasurer's office, 2 years for them to actually calculate what the impact of that was. If you've read in the news recently about a sudden shortfall showing up in school budgets, this is what that's coming from. The grand total of the bill was over $329 million in Maricopa County, which, remember, 57% of the money would have gone to school districts. So in approximately April of this year, every single school district in Maricopa County was given a bill by the treasurer's office that said, we thought we were giving you this money, we're taking it back. It's due in full right now, or we're going to charge you 8% interest on whatever portion you don't repay. Now, in that intervening time, the 2 years between when the case was settled and the bill came due, the county assessor put a little bit of information on the website, but didn't really make any efforts to reach out. So to me, if you're going to suddenly have a change in the money that's coming to an institution like a school that does their budget ahead of time or years in the future, you want to be having a conversation letting them know what's happening. That conversation didn't happen. School board members were finding out about this all at the same time. I got a lot of calls on my phone because people were like, what the heck happened? This long technical tale is what actually happened. The other thing to keep in mind is that because of this, every single dollar that's being taken out of schools is then going to be put into a check and sent to the people that operated those sorts of short-term rentals in your neighborhood that you didn't want in the first place. So
Okay.
that's how that's how that bill showed up. If you saw a recent story in the papers about 150, $160 million coming out of schools, that's how it happened.
I'm sorry. I just feel like I'm trying to stave off an aneurysm or something
Get
because
it?
that's absolutely infuriating. The due upon receipt thing is such, and then 8% interest. Like our schools are already struggling so much. So you said, so, and also you said that Eddie Cook replaced the former assessor. That guy was Paul Peterson, who I believe is Warren Peterson's brother or cousin, and he was found guilty of some sex trafficking thing and is like serving time. So this is, an office of integrity, clearly. So, or or maybe we'd like to
And
see, yeah, go ahead.
so one thing I would say is that people would then say, okay, well, if the court passed this judgment, you can then go pass a law to undo that because the courts are interpreting the laws. The current occupant of that office worked with the legislature in 2022 to change the law, making it so that that money could not ever be collected in the future. Basically amended the law to match the judge's ruling rather than to clarify no, this is money we should be getting. And on his advertising and what have you, brags of it as a big accomplishment. So not only do the school districts owe this money, they're not going to be able to collect the higher tax revenue I believe that they are entitled to in the future.
Okay, yeah, that's some really frustrating stuff. And I know that districts are really scrambling right now. I mean, I think I read something that's like, so just to give it some perspective, like Scottsdale Unified, I think that the number was like $24.1 million or something.
Correct.
Now,
Scottsdale and
now,
Paradise Valley were the school districts affected the most just because their property tax base is the biggest.
yeah,
But yes, it was
so,
over $24 million for Scottsdale. That's the bill that they received.
okay. So, you know, because in school district funding, we have buckets that we can use money for. So do you happen to know, does this come out of the maintenance and operation budgets? Does it come out of the capital budget? So capital budgets are like repairing buildings or, buying computers, right? Like it's the things that you can touch, whereas M&O is funding positions. So does it come off out of a specific fund?
So I'm about to step outside the area of expertise of the assessor, but my understanding is that this is maintenance and operations money because capital improvements, as other court cases have shown, is currently not being funded by the legislature despite court orders to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that general fund money is what's used for that, but so this was a hit to maintenance and operations,
Which,
which school boards have responded in various ways. Some of them have went to their rainy day funds. But to use the rainy day fund money, they have to get the permission of the legislature, which they have not been forthcoming in giving that. And the other alternative, which is very unfortunate, is that it does mean ultimately an increase in taxes of the other people in the school district to help patch the hole in the budget. Like ultimately, this is going to turn into higher taxes for the average Maricopa County citizen because these outside forces have changed the character of our neighborhood.
yeah, it reminds me, I was having a discussion recently with a friend who does this long distance biking stuff, and he ended up biking, this is like 10 years ago, was biking through Colorado City.
Mhm.
Um, and he said, the thing that struck me the most about Colorado City was like none of the buildings are finished. And I remember reading, or maybe it was a documentary that I watched about Warren Jeffs, and that's purposeful. There's a different tax classification for structures that are being built. So when you drive around in some of these FLDS communities, the houses always look like they're under construction because they don't have to pay as many taxes. And this is kind of reminding me of, I know it's not the same, but it's just that kind of grift of the system. You know what I
Well,
mean?
I mean, I would dare say it is the same sort of thing. And I mean, I work in commercial real estate. I deal with people that are investors that own multi-million dollar buildings, and they're always looking at ways to reduce whatever expenses they have, whether it's taxation or another expense. Like I understand the motivation of it. Like it's understandable if you could pay less taxes, a lot of people would, but the impact of not having those taxes paid is then shifted somewhere else. To me, a lot of the roles of these county positions are to really hold a fair and equitable space to say, everybody that owns property here or goes to school here or votes here, we're going to treat this all equally. Everybody has the same rules and the same opportunities, and we're going to call it all fairly. To me, this is an instance where we are definitely favoring a certain category of property owners that I think there's a lot of negative things associated with, which means it ultimately comes at the expense of the average person that's just trying to do right by themselves and their family.
Yeah. So you brought up some of the, the role of other countywide offices. So how would what would the relationship look like, say, between the county assessor and the attorney? Like, did the county attorney have anything to do with this lawsuit at all, or the fact that it was, that it made it, or, I don't know.
Well, so I mean, unfortunately, people in that same economic self-interest I was just talking about, the county assessor is actually sued very commonly for the way that the assessor interprets property taxes. Whenever there's something that's causing taxes to go up for somebody, there is a lawsuit that comes to that. So the attorney's office at Maricopa County is the number one place where those things are defended or not defended. So the philosophy in that office, if it's very extreme, very Christian nationalist, what have you, it will affect the quality of representation that protects the employees of the assessor's office. Like the county attorney represents all those county organizations and the offices. Like if I am elected assessor, I would have the opportunity to get outside counsel, but then that becomes an additional expense borne by the county, which ultimately then translates into tax costs for somebody. I mean, the assessor, I mean, especially since it deals with money, is really kind of in the middle of a lot of the things that happen at the county level. A lot of the basically a lot of the county services, the county budget comes from property taxes as well as sales taxes. The assessor's office will work with the recorder when it comes to the recording of deeds for transfer of property. There's a whole fraudulent world there. After we do an assessment, we hand things to the treasurer to collect the money, and we receive instructions from the board of supervisors of the specific county tax rates as well as some ways that things are implemented. So the county assessor really does sit in the middle of a lot of this stuff. Again, usually very much in the background because it deals with how it all gets paid for.
Mm-hmm. So does this, the funding debacle, or, I guess the lawsuit that's leaving all of these school districts, fire departments in the lurch, does that affect the county superintendent's office at all?
Well, the number one, if you go to the county treasurer's website, you can find the spreadsheet that's 33 pages of every entity that was affected by the tax error. The single biggest number is the Maricopa County Community College System, which lost more than $45 million as a result of this, because it's the sole source of funding for those community colleges. And that amount of money is roughly the cost of running one of the community colleges for a year.
Wow, that part I did not know. That's and just recently too, they launched all these wonderful 4-year programs. I just had a former student reach out to me who was like looking at GCU versus early childhood education at one of the, MCC campuses. And I was like, I'll tell you right now, buddy, that your Maricopa County community colleges are going to be a lot cheaper. And he was like, thank you so much. But
If you look at what happened at the Maricopa Community Colleges out on the west side of Phoenix, about 10 to 20 years ago, there was a huge shortage of professionals in a lot of basically trades. I know that there was a partnership set up with, I think it's Estrella Community College and APS to basically get qualified engineers and workers that could work at the nuclear plant that then provides electricity to everybody. The community colleges are so uniquely positioned to respond to the needs that we have in Maricopa County as we're a growing area. It would not surprise me to see very soon a partnership between TSMC and I think it's either Australia or GCC up there, basically to start training the workers of the future for the jobs of the future. I mean, that's what the money got cut from. I mean, this isn't extravagant things. This isn't, private planes. It's the education for the workers of tomorrow, for the jobs of tomorrow. That's what's at stake when it comes to these sorts of mistakes.
mm, I swear, too many people see everything in their lives as pie, right? Like there's only so many slices of pie, but we have a whole oven and all the ingredients over here. We could keep baking pies and you'll still get your piece of pie, people. Drives me nuts. I've got a question here from Mark. Mark says, well, first he says he thought this was going to be the county recorder candidate. We'll see if we can if we can work on that. I'm trying to work on that right now. I did just send out an invitation for county superintendent. So if you want to mark your calendar, that's October 4th. And we now know that Shelley Boggs will be the Republican nominee against Laura Metcalf, the Democrat. So we'll keep you posted about that. Hopefully we'll get the recorder. But I think that this job is perhaps not quite as important right now as the recorder's office, but still very important. So the question they have is, however, okay, it says, since I read an article on the horrors of Bitcoin servers in some rural and urban areas, what are we doing or not doing to keep them out of Arizona?
Well, I do know that there are definitely some very strong pro-crypto advocates in the legislature on the Republican side. I believe that even became a topic of conversation in the CD3 race between Raquel Tuan and Yasmin Ansari. Um, so what I can say is that as the assessor, um, we assess things and then hand it to the treasurer collects. Me personally, I do not believe that crypto is good for the average person. The product as itself does not actually have any inherent value or use. So the only value that it has is being able to sell it to somebody else at a higher price than what you paid. And if it's only useful if it keeps going up in price, you can pick your own scam of whether it's a Ponzi scheme or a bigger fool scam, whatever you want to call. Interesting technology. The current use for it is speculation and fraud. I don't want to see it anywhere near the official transactions of the city or state governments. I don't want to get my paycheck in crypto. I don't imagine any teachers do. There exists a current legal tender that we use in this country called the dollar, which has been the gold standard internationally for a while. Um, I haven't heard of any serious efforts to really include that except by legislatures that have very large crypto positions themselves. But I can tell you that I'm absolutely against it. I think it favors the rich people that have already bought it to the disadvantage of the average person that's just trying to put food on the table every month and doesn't have time for speculation like that. You're muted, Janine.
Because we're, because of the nature of our organization, does the county assessor have anything to do when it comes to, say, church properties? And this is, I want to frame the question this way because we've gotten a record number of complaints from like all over the state. And I feel like this is an IRS issue. We can tell our supporters till we're blue in the face, report it to the IRS, but nothing ever happens. We're seeing more and more politicking. Like, does the county assessor have any power to, like, let's say that there was a complaint of Dream City Church constantly putting out posters or being partisan. Can you do anything about that?
So I'm gonna take this a couple different ways. One of the things that I have discovered in running for this office is that there is a real lack of ability for the average citizen of Maricopa County to go to the assessor's office with a problem and actually have it addressed there. Um, that is something I intend to fix. Terrible story in the recent news. You might have heard of a couple of children at Airbnbs in South Scottsdale that drowned in the past week. Both of those were at short-term rental properties. If you go to the addresses and look at them, they are currently assessed on the assessor's website as historical properties with non-commercial uses, which is one of the lowest tax classifications you can possibly get. I've heard from historical home advocates that they knew at least one of these properties was being used as a short-term rental. Called the assessor's office to say, hey, they're not assessed correctly. And the answer they got back was, you have to talk to the city it's in. We can't help you. That's, to me, not the way that something like that should be handled. And in this very unfortunate incident, there's a tremendous cost to the emergency services. I mean, there's going to be an investigation, what have you. It's an example of a property being run in an unsafe way. The neighbors know it's not being taxed correctly, but this office was not responsive to that feedback. And again, ultimately, the cost of that will be borne by the other taxpayers in the area. So it does not surprise me that members of your community have complained about a religious property being used for non-religious purposes and not hearing anything about it. There are very specific state rules about property types that are exempt from property taxes. Religious uses is one. Government buildings, as an example, is another. Or low-income nonprofit housing if it meets very certain requirements. Like there are a wide variety of things that they have chosen to make not pay taxes. But those organizations have to file with the assessor's office on a yearly basis to keep the status they have. It is my hope that that filing and subsequent review is more than just making sure the box is checked. I mean, if the category of what a religious organization is legally and specifically defined, if what somebody's use of it is outside of what that is, then to me, yes, that should be reviewed.
Well, this just got a heck of a lot more interesting, I'm sure, for our viewers right now, because like I said, it feels like you're slamming your head against a wall to try to get any kind of anything, it's become so brazen now. Churches don't even try to go outside of their boundaries. They're doing it right next to their signs, vote for Carrie Lake or vote for Mark Fincham. And if we send a complaint, it largely goes ignored. So it sure would be nice to have somebody who would actually maybe hear us when we're telling them that these folks are violating. And I think it would be their just desserts to be reassessed if they're not using their property and their assets in the way that they say that they're using them.
And again, like if there is a situation where those reports are being received, it's my understanding the assessor's office has been moving in a very electronic, automated sort of direction. So maybe there needs to be an internal change of staffing to actually look into those things. I've even heard the rare occasion of people saying, "Oh yeah, somebody from the office stopped by. We put in an addition, so the square footage came, and they personally came out to investigate." So there's some capacity in the office to do that. I don't know why those complaints are. Well, I can speculate why those complaints aren't being acted on, but I can say that for me, having things properly assessed means that people are being taxed in an equitable and fair way, which is to the benefit of everybody. I mean, it's in state law, it is legal to have an Airbnb. Like it, lump it, that is the law. But at the same time, if you choose to do that, you should pay the appropriate and higher tax rate for doing that. That's
Mhm.
part and parcel of having it. To me, it's the I want to do what I want, but not have to take responsibility for it. That to me is the galling part of it.
And the story that you told too about the historic homes and the tragic story of children drowning, like I know that if you have a home in Arizona, like you have to have a fence around the pool. Like, so if you're selling your home, even if you've taken a fence down or you never had a fence, I believe that you have to prove during the sale of your home that pool, I think that's a law, maybe municipal, maybe statewide. But I know when I bought and sold houses before, that was something that came up in the evaluation of the home and like the assessment. And so every time somebody goes to that house, they don't have to go through the same, like they're not being protected the same way as a home buyer would. And then a comment that we have here from Annika, it creates a societal problem. One where people, these housing hoarders who hoard houses to rent them out, which creates artificial scarcity of homes available for sale. How many houses has the largest such company held that you've seen? Are you privy to that information?
So again, a little outside of the assessor's office, what I would say is that the most recent statistics I've seen in the real estate world is that in the last year, 31% of home sales were purchased by out-of-state institutional investors, like a hedge fund, somebody buying it to turn it into either a short-term or long-term rental. So 3 out of every 10 sales that complete is into the hands of one of those big institutions.
That blows me away, but also I'm not surprised. Uh, so speaking of housing and it's a artificial scarcity of homes. Like, what can you do as county assessor to, come up with solutions about this faux housing scarcity that we have?
So the link between homelessness and housing affordability is actually what had me step into this race. My original plan for this election cycle was to be supporting my local candidate in LD2 who I loved and really kind of having this conversation. And through that I got connected to the county and hey, if you want to make a difference in housing affordability, run for an office where the taxes that everybody pays is a factor of that. The most primary way the assessor's office can assist with housing affordability and homelessness is that there exist programs for people that are above a certain age or of a certain financial condition or have a disability to basically have their property taxes frozen where they won't continue to go up. The fastest growing population of the homeless in Maricopa County is people over the age of 65. The estimates are that 1 out of every 4 homeless these days are 65 plus. And if you think about it, if you were somebody that did the right thing for 40 years of your life and saved up and bought a house, the only bill you can never get rid of is your property taxes that this office assesses. I personally want to see that program implemented to the fullest of its ability. If for those of you that get a property tax notice, you'll see the exemption program is a little note on the back, whereas the current assessor has a big blurb on the front about how great a job he's doing. I'd want to see those two reversed. I want to make sure that everybody that could possibly qualify for that assistance is able to do so. I want to make sure that the office is adequately staffed to handle those requests, to make sure that people are being walked through the process. So keeping people in their houses, to me, is the first thing we can do about homelessness and housing affordability. Um, you mentioned in my earlier biography, I serve on 2 zoning committees in Phoenix. I have personally voted yes on more than 1,000 new housing projects in my little section of town because we do know that the supply needs to be kept up. But a lot of the policy, a lot of the options to restrict that sort of out of state institutional ownership, that's at the level of the legislature. All of us in the county are subject to the rules that they say of what is and isn't acceptable in the real estate market. So if you, I mean, I don't know if you guys endorse candidates or what have you, but if you're looking at the votes that you have to send somebody to the state legislature or the state senate, ask them about what they see to do for housing. Because
Mhm.
there are some candidates, both sides of the aisle, that are very interested in that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of candidates on one side of the aisle are not interested in helping at all.
Yeah, yeah, we and unfortunately we don't endorse, but we do, we'll definitely take a stance on issues. And yeah, it does seem we're actually our communications guy right now is working on putting together the secular scorecard. And unfortunately, there is one side that seems to support our issues, where another side, like, the scores are anywhere between about 90 and 100% on one side of the aisle, and then they're like 0 to 9% on the other side. So you can kind of imagine. So yeah, those legislative races become really, really important. So have you seen, you are a Democrat, your Republican was invited, your Republican opponent was invited, he didn't come. But have you seen a fresh breath of air in your campaign now that the the national Democratic ticket has changed? Has this changed your race at all?
Oh, very much so. In just the way that life works out, I picked a very, very bad time for my summer vacation because I was flying out of town the night of the first debate and then out of town away from all of my support structure as the Supreme Court handed down decision after decision that I didn't agree with. So I didn't come back from my vacation in a very good space. But where we are now, a month after that, has nothing to do with what that is. I can say that at Maricopa County Democratic Party, they have more volunteers calling in the past 3 weeks than they've had in the previous 3 years.
Wow.
Um, we are, there is so much energy. Obviously, many of you I will see at a big arena here in Phoenix later today. The energy of it is completely different. And what it really highlights is there is one of the political philosophies on the ballot this year is about the future, is about what can we do to really set up future generations to succeed. And the other is really a past-based conversation about grievance, about moving things backwards to how they used to be, instead of dealing with what we have and moving forward. And I feel that the change at the top of the Democratic ticket has absolutely changed that larger conversation. So now that we can go out there and say, like, yes, we want everybody's votes to be counted. Yes, we want people to be able to make the decisions that they want to make about how they live their life, about their bodily autonomy, about their healthcare decisions. It's really for us highlighted the difference between those two positions. And I know that you're a nonpartisan group, and sadly, I'm running in a partisan office, but I think the divide is very clear. And the impact that it has had out there, it shows up in the number of people coming to knock doors and make phone calls and donate money. And we just got to keep riding that wave all the way through the end of the election.
Yeah, there's a question coming in here from Judy, and she asks, do you think the Arizona legislature could ever establish rental caps? That's part one. And would that be a helpful regulation toward making more affordable housing?
So is the legislature capable of it? Yes, by law, that sort of legislation could come there. as a watered down version of it. Well, let me take a step back. I know you deal with this a lot in a lot of the communications that you make, is that our legislature is very special in that not only will it pass a law saying something, it will also then remove the capability of a local government or county or city or what have you to do anything to the contrary. So it's oftentimes they won't even say what you can do, they'll just say you can't do this. You can see that in women's health issues, you can see that in real estate and all these things. Right now, the law on the books says no one may institute a rental cap. So they don't even necessarily have to pass a rental cap. They could just stop the law that says cities can't do this, and then cities could work it out. One of the cities that is most impacted by this actually is Sedona, believe it or not. Um, Sedona has very restrictive rules about how much that they allow to build, so there is a shortage of housing. The estimates are that as more than half the houses in the entire city are now rentals. So last year, their city council had to seriously consider a rule making it legal for people to park in their cars in a local park. Like to spend, like they had to legalize a form of homelessness because it was that bad. So rental caps, the composition of the legislature as it's been has made it absolutely impossible for cities or counties to even consider. Um, I think that if they did choose to let cities do that, then we could enter the laboratory of democracy where different cities could try things. I know Scottsdale's approach would be different than Peoria's, would be different than Surprise's, different than Gilbert's, and then maybe we could figure out something that actually worked or find what the best way forward was. But right now, the law as structured forbids anybody from even trying it.
Yeah, it's funny. I was at a press conference, I believe, and somebody asked, like, what's the first thing that you'd like to do if the legislature flips? And it was not about what they were going to do, but more about what they were going to undo. So they would undo the protections for, crisis pregnancy centers, and undo the forced probing of pregnant women, like all those things. So I imagine in the office of the assessor too, there's probably some undoing that you're going to need to do as well.
Oh, very much so. I mean, it's as up and down the party as we look at these things, like there's so many things taken off the table that we aren't even considering. And of course, if that all changes, then game on. Like there'll be a lot of things available. Jumping back to the short-term rental issue before, the law as written, no city may forbid them. No city may regulate them in any way, shape, or form. All they can do is build a list and charge a nominal fee for a permit to operate a short-term rental. But the only way you can exclude it is if it was written in the CC&Rs of your specific community years ago. You can't even amend it in the short term to push them out. Like that's the way that the law is written. So wouldn't you know, a bunch of Republican legislators changed their HOA rules before these laws passed so that they could push them out of their neighborhood, but you can't have that in yours. Again, another example of the way that they organize those laws to limit the debate and options so that we don't even have a democratic process about it.
Now I suddenly want to know how many of our elected legislators have short-term rentals. Do you have that information by any chance?
So as a candidate, you have to file a bunch of financial statements about what you have interest in and don't. So all of that is publicly available. You can get that off the Secretary of State's site, I believe.
That might be some interesting research for the hot weekend that we're about to embark on. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and be selfish here because I know Greg needs to get to the west side. I need to get to the west side. We all need to get to the west side. So Greg, why don't you maybe close us out? Let us know why, why folks should vote for you in this position.
So for me, the number one thing that I see for myself to bring to this position is accountability, and specifically accountability to the people that live here. Um, I have heard stories as I'm going around about people that have issues that have been going on for years that they can't get resolved at the assessor's office, or If you want to schedule an appointment to see somebody in person, they have 1 hour available per week and they're booked for 3 months out. Like you should not be getting better customer service from the cable company than you do from a government institution that you interact with and is so important to all these things. So to me, my absolute commitment is to bring a very constituent focused approach to this. It's public service. My job being there would be to be of service to you, to the homeowners and the potential future homeowners that want eventually to have homes of their own in Maricopa County. To me, that's my promise. That's what I'm trying to bring to this office instead of the bureaucracy and the special interests that we see in so many other parts of government here in Arizona.
Well, I don't know about the rest of you who are in attendance today, but this has been, and I've actually heard Greg speak before, but I've even learned more. And like I say, that part about the churches is pretty compelling, folks. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody here locally who could hold them accountable? And again, we don't endorse folks. I'm not sure what Eddie Cook had cooking today, but it wasn't this. So, best of luck to both of you. But thank you so much today, Greg, for bringing us your perspective. Now, one last thing, because this is how I always close. What gives you hope?
Look, conversations like this give me hope. As what I have seen happening in the past couple weeks give me hope. An America where everybody has the opportunity to better themselves and leave a better world for their children. That's what we all want. And yes, we have sometimes it seems like we get off the rails on that for one person's selfish ambition, but the average American, no matter what side of the aisle they're on, or whether they're not engaged at all, like there's a place for them in America. And we get to create that all together. Like we create America every day together. That's what gets me up, and that's what I'm hopeful about.
Well, who knew that I'd be so inspired by a local county assessor candidate? Thanks, Greg, for that. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you all for the work that you do.
Right on. See you later, everybody. I'll see you on the west side. Take care.